What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review Better Call Saul's series finale, as well as probably just rant and talk about the entire series as a whole. I felt, it was right to do this, and it was right to do it here, and I have a lot of things to say. I thought that final episode was beautiful. Beautiful. I was so worried leading into, tense, and because of, you just don't know what they're going to do with the character in terms of, would he maybe off himself? Would they kill him off in some way? What would happen to his character? And I'll be honest, the fact of him being caught within, I believe, the first 11 minutes of the show, and part of those 11 minutes were the flashback with Mike, that alone was wow, they're getting to it right away. And the show became literally still, and I think rightfully so, a legal show. It was a show showing his strengths as a lawyer. It was a show showing this kind of ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, which I believe Peter Gould talked about, that's literally what they were trying to do, is being kind of visited by these three ghosts. The idea of the episode of turning back time, what would you do if you could go back in time? What would you change? It's such a different finale than Breaking Bad. It's not even close. Now, I know I saw people that say, they like one over the other. I think, honestly, there was obviously issues, I think, with the Breaking Bad series finale. I think there is one issue I'd like to say about this finale, but I feel like they were about as perfect of finales as you could conjure up for the kind of show that each one was. They weren't trying to beat each other because they weren't even close to the same thing, right? I mean, you think about the Breaking Bad finale, it's not even close to what literally happened here. This was a more, and I guess Breaking Bad had character-driven moments in that, the series finale, but this one, again, the idea of changing your past, visiting Mike, visiting Walt, and then visiting Chuck, which I thought, I knew Walt was going to come back. There was already a thing, I think it was confirmed, Walt and Jesse would be a cameo together, and then Jesse would be a cameo on his own, and Walt would be a cameo on his own, so I knew it was going to be Walt. And in my head, I thought, I did actually predict, again, I never say these things out loud, I thought, I bet you they're going to do, and I was right in the location, I bet you they're going to do when they're in that bunker waiting to be shipped off for their other lives. When Walt said, it's over when I say it's over, but he started coughing, and then Saul says it's over, and he walks out. I actually thought that's where they're going to put it. And I was right. That's exactly where they put it. I think they put it a little bit, obviously, earlier than that, but it was so good. It was so good to see these three characters one more time. Walt having that iconic look that, because we saw him, a few episodes ago, and he had a different iconic look, but this look was definitely iconic as well. Seeing Chuck again, I thought was awesome. I've been watching a lot of behind the scenes, featurettes. I've been watching a lot of, the main plot points of the earlier seasons, and Chuck is such a different character, and his hate for Jimmy is quite something that makes me mad, and I think it's supposed to, but and also it really is a integral part of what Jimmy becomes. But he's such an incredible actor, so to see him come back and to see those two bounce off of each other one more time, I thought was really it was awesome. It was so cool to see it. And then the major story decisions, I liked it. I liked it. The one thing I would say is his switch to basically owning up to his what he's done, I think came too fast. Now that, in my opinion, is probably a nitpick because I get the weight of what happened, right? He's making a deal. He's doing really well. He's gotten his life sentence down from 190 to 7, and then he wants to keep going because, again, and I like that because that's also his problem, right? He can't shut his mouth. He can't he always wants to keep going, right? That's literally what got him into the situation of being caught by the police. If he just walked out of the house instead of going back up the stairs to the, for the watches and all that, if he just walked out, there would never been the cops, that they wouldn't have pulled up in time. He wouldn't have been caught, all of that stuff. Now, maybe he would have been caught the next time because, again, he just can't help himself. But that's, again, I think that's a theme. So he keeps going, And then they find out, or he finds out, that Kim has already made, not necessarily a deal, but Kim has already, said everything about the Howard incident. And I will say, I really just love the look on his face where at the time you're not really sure what he's thinking. Now, I do think it becomes very, very obvious that he is going to like mess himself up on purpose. Does that make sense? I don't know how obvious it was supposed to be, but that initial look was really good because it's like he feels hurt, but actually no, I feel like that initial look was, wow, I can't believe Kim would go out of her way to, because he talked to her however long ago, and they went back and forth of how basically she is also a coward. She ran away. She doesn't own up to anything either, like that kind of stuff. So him hearing that she actually did that basically, right, gives him the strength. Well, twofold. It gives him the strength to do it, but also now that she's put herself on the line where she can have everything taken from her, he feels he maybe needs to step up to defend her, right? So both of those things are happening kind of simultaneously. And then, when it gets to the plane sequence, it's like, all right, at that point, once he's talking openly to the, to the agent, I was like, all right, I get what he's doing. He's obviously doing this on purpose. He's going to get her there, and then he's actually going to confess to it all so that she's safe. And ultimately, he didn't really save her. That's kind of the point. I was reading the interviews with the different actors, and that's kind of the theme there is nobody really believes that his testimony saves her from being sued. She could still easily be sued, but it frees both of them mentally, right? And again, like, that's so different. Like, there's no massive gunfire. There's no killing Jack. There's no freeing Jesse. There's there's none of that. There's no threatening to have the money be sent to Walt's kid. Like, there's none of that stuff in this episode. It's literally finishing the arc of this was a good person who his ego gets bruised very easily, and he carries things with him more than he should. He let his brother, his brother is not innocent here at all, right? But he let it get to him way too much, and that obviously backfired because then he caused Chuck to literally off himself. Then you keep going, and he just keeps getting himself in harder situations. Breaking Bad. I read one of the interviews, and I really liked because I could notice it in the moment, like the Walt thing. Walt really is a bad person to him. Like, Walt just shakes him off, just does it. He corrects him at every turn, right? He's like, well, you're not asking me about time travel. You're asking me about regret. So just ask me about regret. Number one, phenomenal acting. I mean, Bryan Cranston. I mean, you think to Bob Odenkirk, and you think to the cast of Better Call Saul, which is one of the most well put together casts of all time. But then you have to go back and think, well, Breaking Bad also was incredible too. And Bryan Cranston is one of, if not the best people out there. And so, number one, I was like, I could watch them sitting there talking about, time travel and fixing a leak. I could watch that for like 3 hours. I really could. If they wanted to give it like an extended cut, I'd watch it. But the idea of where you could really see it, and maybe I didn't see it so much when watching Breaking Bad, but like Walt really doesn't like this guy at all, right? He's like, you would be the last lawyer I'd ever go to do that stuff. He's so mean to him. Really, not even there's no reason to be mean to Saul as much as he is, but he is. And you realize, and again, like the interview I was reading too, it's like Walt is just Chuck in a different form. Like he surrounds himself with people that are smarter than him in some ways, and they just not necessarily take advantage. I guess Walt maybe took advantage, but they just they're just mean to him, and he's still making the same mistakes though. Like and for some reason he puts up with it and all this stuff. So like seeing those things, I guess, add up, and then finally seeing Chuck. And by the way, again, the philosophical issue of turning back time with Mike, where he doesn't really give an answer, or it's very, very short. Then you go to Walt, which was a more detailed answer, but it was about his knees, that he would fix, his knee injury. And then when you look to Chuck, it was about, well, number one, like if you're on the wrong path, or if you feel like you're going the wrong way, you can always go back and fix it. Didn't necessarily mention time travel, but then obviously the book that Chuck picks up at the end is time travel. So that theme, again, it's so different. Like, it was slow. It was a very slow episode, but everything was so, I feel like, well plotted out, where it's like, you get it. And I love that it was it was a character-driven episode. It was a character arc, like a finishing kind of episode. I mean, then him going to jail, like, it's sad. It's really sad that, and also it's kind of incredible where they show you one last time how good of a lawyer he is, right? That he got himself down to only 7 years, and he said, you know what? No, I need to actually own up to these things. And whether that, that frees him up mentally. Whether we forgive him for his crimes, I'll forgive him personally. But whether, he's supposed to be forgiven for all that he's done, not necessarily, but he can at least live knowing he said what he needed to say. And Kim heard it. So now, no matter what happens with Kim, at least she knows who he is now, and who he's kind of always been, but he kind of buried it. He buried that role. Jimmy was the good one, right? And then as that went, he took on the persona of Saul and then Gene. But, like, the core of Jimmy is a good person, and that's why he let go of Saul, and he became Jimmy McGill, which I love that, too. Like, it's the same person, but, when he wants to represent himself, but he wants to represent himself as Saul Goodman, so it's the U.S. versus Saul Goodman. There's something so impactful there, but then at the end, he says, McGill, Jimmy McGill, that's my name. And it's like, that's just so awesome that he reverts back to who he actually is. Really good. And then, like, I was actually kind of scared like he would be taken out in jail, but then it was clear obviously they were going for a different angle where it's like he's actually looked up to as like a god in jail, right? Because now I don't know why everybody would know him. I guess it's just maybe a lot of people know him and they would just tell stories of like, hey, that's the lawyer who and look, he's here. I would almost look at that as a negative, right? Because like, oh, you're a lawyer supposed to keep people out of here, and yet you're in here too. So I don't buy necessarily that everybody would be like incredible. I guess that would be another issue with me is I don't just think he would be literally a king and everybody would be like, you're good, Saul, go. And because they're all calling him that, which by the way, though, he goes by Jimmy now. In fact, he says that to the inmate in the bus. So, there are issues there, but overall, them being with Kim one more time, doing the smoke scene, I thought was awesome. Really, really cool. The throwback really to all of their good old days, and I believe the first episode of the series as well. You'll think to the gunshot thing at the very end, like that was awesome as well. And just them kind of leaving at she may still be in trouble. She could come back. I think in my world, she visits him quite often, and he's okay. I don't know if he ever gets out in my world, but like at least you get to ask those questions, right? Which is again like not necessarily better or worse than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was like Jesse leaves. Now I guess Jesse's was left to interpretation until El Camino, right? Where Jesse breaks through and he's gone, and it's like you kind of get to tell the story. Does Jesse escape? I think in a lot of our worlds, yeah, Jesse escapes. Jesse is the one who kind of makes it out of it all, right? And that's what we kind of thought. But like Walt and all of the other characters, like their ending is definitive. There is no, up for imagination. They're just gone. And then Saul kind of was up for imagination as well. He's working at Cinnabon. Like, what's he going to do? You don't learn that until later. But it's like, they finished an arc by making him so complex, way more complex than we ever thought he could have been in Breaking Bad. And then they still leave the ending kind of up to, your interpretation of what does what does that mean? How often does Kim visit? Is that the only time she ever visits? I really don't think that. But does he get out? Does he get out early on good behavior? He's in there for 86 years. I believe he's supposed to be in his late 40s in the show. So, if 86 years, obviously he'd be dead, but maybe he can get out by the time he's like 70, 80, 85, right? So it's like in a world, it's possible that there is a good ending, I guess, to his character. So just incredible. Different, very, very different. Again, like all that tenseness I had of, is he going to evade the cops? Is he going to make it out? And it's like he gets caught almost immediately, right? He goes in the dumpster, and I don't know if they saw him because like, they did get out of their car. Like all they had to do was look behind them to see him jumping into the dumpster. I feel like somebody was walking in that direction, and then it's when he was trying to open the phone and he banged and it made a loud bang. That's when he got caught. I feel maybe if he didn't make that bang, now would the phone call have worked? The guy who played, the guy who gets you out of those situations, he died back in 2019. So. People were wondering what exactly were they going to do with that because he wouldn't be able to unless they did some sort of voice, thing. But that alternate world. In a way, I would have liked a longer him on the run thing, but it also very much makes sense with his character where it's like, that's not him. He is very, very smart, but he literally was caught. I mean? The cops were surrounding him. They know everything. They know his license plate too that Marion gives him as he's leaving. Like, he can't do anything. He's not Walt in that way, even though Walt was never in that tight of a situation. Otherwise, he would have been caught as well. So it makes sense that he was caught so quickly. And then the episode again literally became a lawyer's show with him trying to reduce his sentence and then finishing his arc with these flashbacks, these Christmas Carol-like things, which I thought was really, really fun. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. I could probably talk about this forever, but, I feel like I've said my piece. Maybe we can talk about the entire series in the future. Let me know, what you want to see, in the future on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.